A new deadline has been set for the nearly 180,000 Zimbabweans living and working in South Africa to apply for ordinary visas or waivers. The 31st December expiry date on the Zimbabwean exemption permit has been extended to the 30th of June next year. Now, in a statement released, the Department of Home Affairs says Minister Aaron Motsoaledi has taken into consideration the recommendations made by the advisory committee to extend the deadline. The department also says it has received a few applications so far from Zimbabwean nationals. Motsoaledi says permit holders should not be arrested, detained or deported during the ZEP extension period. Meanwhile, he's urged them not to make use of this period, to apply, as there won't be any further extensions. Well, joining us now to help us have this conversation further is Home Affairs Minister Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi. Minister, thank you so much for your time and thank you for joining us on our platform today.
Good morning, Togoza. Good morning to the viewers and listeners, and thank you very much for having me.
Well, I think let's start with, you taking us through the decision to extend the grace period and also just detailing for us what it means for Zimbabwean nationals living and working in South Africa.
Well, Togozo, you may be aware that we announced sometimes this year that I've put together a special team to advise the DG and the minister who will be the people who finally approves whatever document is finalized. Now, that team is chaired by the former Director General in the Presidency, Dr. Cassius Lubisi. Their job is to scrutinize every document and advise the minister and the DG what to do. Now, they've been having a series of meetings. On the 1st of September, they wrote a letter to me that they had a whole day's meeting that day to assess what needs to be done, to assess the amount of work, to look at the number of applications that are flowing in. Then they wrote a letter to advise me that I should extend the validity period to the 30th of June 2023.
All right. The other issue around this is that the extension period itself applies for the application of ordinary visas and waivers. Does this also give time to Zimbabwean nationals living in the country to make applications for other permits?
This is specifically for those who are ZEP holders. So remember that there are millions of Zimbabweans in South Africa who are on other permits that already exist in the Immigration Act of 2002. There are lots of Zimbabweans, students who are on study visas. There are lots of Zimbabweans who are on scarce skill visas. There are lots of those who are on general work visa. There are lots of those who are on relatives visa and visitors visa. There are lots who have got permanent residency in South Africa, who have got permanent residence permits. Now, this we are talking about specifically applies to 178,000 Zimbabweans who came to South Africa and were given a special document called a Zimbabwean exemption permit. That only applies to that group of people.
Now, Minister, we noted that one of the considerations that the committee actually looked into was the fact that very few applications were actually made with regards to the earlier iteration in terms of application periods. Are you not at all concerned that by extending the grace period, you may be perpetuating more of this lax behavior towards nationals actually coming forward to make these applications?
Well, it's up to them. If you look at the statement we have released, we have clearly made it, we have clearly recorded that there will be no further extensions after this 30th of June. So it's up to individuals to choose what they want to do.
All right. In the interim, Minister, you've mentioned that Zimbabwean nationals living in this country should not be arrested, should not be detained, should not be deported. I mean, this is a very important message given a lot of the sort of anti-foreigner sentiments that we've been seeing across the country. Is this a message that has been relayed to all relevant law enforcement agencies to ensure that they uphold this very specific aspect of the extension period?
The words you are mentioning, you read them in the directive, which I also issued yesterday. Yes, indeed, it has been sent to all the enforcement agencies, to all our borders, to airlines, it sends all over, but on Monday it's going to be gazetted. It will appear in the government gazette. It will also be on our website. Yes, we are putting that statement because we don't want people to act illegally. Because it will be illegal for us to extend the permit up to the 30th of June and for something to happen to the permit holders in the meantime. So I just want to make it clear because we want to work within the confines of the law.
Before I let you go, Minister, as you know, there's been a lot of pushback with regards to government's position on the ZEP. More recently, we had SAFTU's General Secretary, Zwelinzima Mavavi, effectively blaming the predicament that South Africa finds itself in on the ANC-led government, on its lax approach to the sort of political crisis that's unfolding in the neighboring Zimbabwe. Your response to that, this notion that a lot of this has to do with the ANC government having to clean up its own mess?
Well, we hear that a lot. In Togoso, we hear that a lot every day. Anybody who wants to attack government will make use of that type of argument. We have conceded to the fact that we have got porous borders. That we have conceded to, we're not arguing against it. And porous borders means people come here illegally very easily. But then we then said, in order to deal with that once and for all, we establish a special agency, a special authority to deal with the borders because it did not exist. And that's how the Border Management Authority came into being. And it is still very new. And as such, it's still in its early days to make sure that people don't easily come into the country illegally. The second issue, which I hear a lot, presumes that South Africa has got the power to run its neighboring countries, to run political activities in those countries. I don't know, Togoso, how possible is that? Zimbabwe is a sovereign country. I always hear people believing that President Thabo Mbeki holds the responsibility of how Zimbabwe is run today. I don't know. It surprises me. Zimbabwe is a sovereign country. It has got a seat in the United Nations. When they call heads of state in the United Nations, the head of Zimbabwe is allowed. It has got a seat on AU. It has got a seat on SADC and many other international bodies. I'm not sure whether all those bodies President Thabo Mbeki is in charge of. But I do hear that argument a lot that the democracy in Zimbabwe is controlled by South Africa. I'm not convinced about that.
Well, Minister, always a pleasure to have you on our program. Thank you for joining us this morning.